Build the body, lead the home, honor God. This is where discipline meets devotion. This is the 3F life: faith, family, fitness, and I'm your host, Connor. Today, I want to talk about some things that I would do different if I was able to start over at 20 years old. So if you're like in your early 20s or like 18, 19 years old, this video is going to be perfect for you because I'm going to share my experience and kind of where I failed. And I think the first thing, and I think needs to be the number one thing in any man's life, is pursuing Christ. And I didn't do that in most of my 20s. I didn't go to church. I believed in God. I knew that Christ died on the cross for our sins, but I wasn't walking the walk. And when you don't walk the walk, you walk away from Christ. It's like if you're not for me, you're against me. You're living for the devil if you're not living for Christ. And if you're not a believer, then I understand that that's not like really your thought process on this. But if you are a believer, that's just the reality of it. And I lived my life however I wanted to live it and did things that I shouldn't have done. And, it led to a rock bottom point in my life. And if I was to start with one piece of advice, I would say follow God as much as you can. Get as involved as you can in the church. Do everything that you can. Be the man that God wants you to be, because He will reward your life. And I'm seeing Him reward my life, although I got to a point where I didn't think like I deserved it. I got to a point where I told God, I don't deserve you to be here for me. I've turned away from you. And it's just the grace of Christ. That's the only reason that He still is. Because if God was like a human, He would have thrown me into hell years ago. And my life was a little different than most people that are like in their 20s, because I had my first kid when I was 19. So a lot of people, what they'll do as men, they kind of build throughout their 20s. And then they hit more of like their peak in their like late 20s, 30s, and whatnot. And then that's when a lot of people want to have kids, when they're more like put together financially and things like that. And I think that's a really good way to go about it. But it's just the reality of my life is I had 3 kids before I was like 26 years old. And my life was just, I did things kind of like the opposite. I was working at the movie theater when my ex-wife was pregnant. And once that happened, I was like, okay, now I got to be an adult, get a real job that's not getting me minimum wage. And I got to go out and put food on the table. And, sometimes that's a good, building experience for a man where you have to grow up. Because you put yourself in a position where it's like, I have no other choice but to improve from here. And that's kind of what my life was. But I failed to do a lot of the things that I would have done had that not happened. I would have put more time into building a business. I would have put more time in the gym. Because if you spend your 20s just grinding in the gym every day, eating a healthy life, you're going to set yourself up for a lifetime of health. And you're going to be in the peak fitness that you can be in. If you lift for a decade straight and you have a pretty strict diet, obviously if you're doing it for 10 years, you can have cheat meals here and there. But if you do that for a decade, you're going to have an incredible physique. And I failed that. I got to like 200, ballooned up, full-on dad bod. And I thought that was it's kind of normal. Like a dad has kids and then he gets kind of overweight and stuff like that. So I didn't really see a problem with it until I just woke up one day and was like, geez, this is awful. My health isn't great. I'm super out of shape. And then I made the change. And obviously it's never too late. Like if you're watching this and you're 30, I'm not telling you it's too late to make a change in your life. This is for if you're still in your 20s and you haven't started to do that, then start now, because what's going to happen is you're going to wake up like I did. I was 27 years old, and you're going to come to the realization, even if you've told yourself it's just a dad bod, you watch these videos online where girls will tell people oh yeah, I like dad bods more than muscular men and whatnot. And I would do that. I would tell myself oh, it's fine, I'm overweight, whatever. And then I realized I want to be fit for me. Like, I haven't had a six pack in my life. I want that. I want to be healthy for my family. And so that kind of made the change in my life. And so now I'm sitting here a year and a half into the gym, and I'm way more athletic and in shape than I've ever been, but I'm still not where I want to be because I started so late. And I know I'm going to be there eventually, but if you start when you're in your early 20s, you're going to be way ahead of where I am now. And you're going to be so happy and grateful that you put that time in, because then you're just doing it on autopilot. It's just normal for you to hit the gym constantly. If I was still in my early 20s, I would have cared more about relationships. What happened with my life is I got married young, like 20, 21 years old. And I basically lost all of my friends. And that wasn't like we never had like falling outs or anything like that. I was just married and didn't have the time to spend with friends. And I kind of threw that away. And then with the chaos of having kids, I didn't even build the relationship I had with my own wife. So we just coexisted. And that really like made me realize after everything was done, like when I reconnected with my friends and I realized like how crucial they are to my life and how valuable I feel like they are to me, how much they've made an impact on me and the advice that they've given me and being there to lift with me and, you know, everything that a good friend does, holding you accountable. And I realized like I shouldn't have thrown that away. I shouldn't have just picked a woman over my friends. And obviously, like if you get married, like your wife is going to come before your friends. I'm not telling you it's not. But when you live that life where it's like I got married and now like, or you're in a relationship and you just kind of throw all your friends away because that's your life now, that's not great. And then when you don't build the relationship with your wife, when you're not continuing to pursue her because you feel like you've already won, you got the woman, what do you need to do now? And what that's going to lead to is she's going to fall out of love with you because you're not doing anything you did when you met her. You're not making her fall in love with you over and over again. She fell in love with you once, so now you expect it to just be, you know, an everlasting thing until death do us part. And I think that was, for me, that was my intention. It's like I got married and that was my thought process on it. It's like we're married, so now it's until death do us part. But I kind of just didn't work on it. And I realized that is a big problem. If you don't work on your relationship, then how do you expect it to last for life? How do you expect to get to 20 years married if you didn't work on it for 20 years? How do you expect to still like be best friends and stuff? Because when you're with the same person all the time, like everything comes out. Your strengths, your flaws. And if you live this type of life that I lived, those flaws are magnified. And the other thing that like I realized later in my 20s is that all of this like worldly stuff that's normal, and this kind of goes to the point of like fallen Christ, but some of them aren't like necessarily sins, but it's so normal nowadays for people to be smoking weed every day. It's so normal to drink alcohol a lot every weekend. It's so normal to be binge watching TV and movies and playing video games. And I realized like when I got older that those things were just like drained me. They made me a nothing. It was just such a lazy habit to have, and they didn't improve my life in any way. So why do something if it's not going to better your life? Like it's okay to say like your hobby is video games, right? Let's say that's your hobby. But why can't you have like a hobby that's like beneficial for your life? Like learning a new skill or like being in the gym, playing a sport. Those are hobbies just as much as video games are, but those aren't hobbies that are going to make you lazy and do nothing with your life and waste your life away. So I realized that like far too late. And it's funny because my dad told me when I was young, because I'm a huge sports fan. So like on Sundays for years, I would watch sports all day. Every Sunday, it's just like football from 11 a.m. until after Sunday night football. That's my entire day on the couch. And I remember my dad telling me like some of these things like when I was young, like how he stopped caring so much about sports, how he stopped playing video games. Like he told me this story And I don't remember what game it was, but he was like, I played this game until like 2 in the morning and realized it was so late and realized like how addicting it was. And then I haven't played video games since, unless like I'm playing with my sons. And I always was just like kind of ignored his advice on those things. Was just like, oh, well, I'm never gonna not like be in the sports, and video games are fun. I'll be playing video games until my 40s. And then now that I'm older, now I realize like the reality of what my dad told me. It was all true. Those things didn't do anything for my life. They didn't better me in any way. And I just wasted so much time. I wasted time being the worst version of myself. So what I would say is, if you're in your 20s, write down the man that you want to be in your 30s. Write down every single detail that you can think of as far as what you're going to look like, the type of man you are going to be, your personality. What is your weakness right now? Because let me tell you, if you're introverted right now and you're 20 and you spend 10 years, let's say you get into sales and you talk to people every day, you build the skill of becoming friends with people, building rapport, you're not going to be introverted when you're 30. So write these all down and figure out, like, what is the man that I want to be in 10 years or 5 years, depending on how old you are. And then work towards those things. Attack those things. What are your goals? And I think like what happens is we go through like school, and school tells us like some goals are like too far-fetched. I remember freshman year of high school, I don't remember the name of the class, but we had to write like a report on what we wanted to do when we got older. And they were like, you can't put like you want to be a famous musician. You can't put like you want to be in the NBA. And I thought like back then, like, why are they telling me, like, why are you feeding me these limited beliefs? And obviously if you're 22 years old, the NBA ship is probably sailed for you. There's not many people that have made it like after that. I mean, I'm sure there's a handful of examples that made it like when they're 24, 25. I think there was one guy who was like in his late 20s that made like the Lakers for like a short stint. But like if that's your goal, but what a lot of people have is like a goal of building a business, a goal like a financial goal. And if that's your goal, then write down what's it going to take for me to get this. What if I put 10 years? And think about this, like, because I'm sitting here, I'm a few months away from being 29. And I look back and I'm like, what if I did this for 10 years? What if I was in the gym every day for 10 years? What would my body look like now? What if I had been working on this YouTube thing that I'm doing right now that's not getting a whole lot of views on every video? What if I did this 10 years ago and I would be 10 years into this now? What if I had started the business 10 years ago and I continue to pursue it for 10 years? Think about that. Like, you think that if you put hard work for a decade into anything that you're not going to have results after a decade? That's not true. You will 100% see the results of whatever your goal is. So write these things down and become the man that you want to be. Be the man that God wants you to be. Don't live your life and sit on your deathbed and regret things that you didn't do. Go and just grind. Spend your 20s grinding. And the other thing I had like with my ex, because this is the mindset I wanted to be in. And sometimes what happens is you get with the wrong woman and she tells you like, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. We should go on this trip here, we should go on that trip there. And then you put yourself in a stupid financial position. And I would be like, when I was in like my early 20s, I'd be like, no, I don't need a vacation. Let's grind. Let's work, put money away. And then when we're set up financially, like in our 30s, we'll go and travel the world and go wherever we want. But she didn't have that same idea. She did not agree with me. And so we didn't. I just kind of went along with the vacations, being in credit card debt and everything like that. So if it's not feeding into your goals and the type of man that you want to be, then don't do it. Just put the work in now and see the results years from now. Because I'm telling you, it will be worth it. Because if you wake up and you're my age and you're 28, 29 years old and you didn't do these things and you knew that you wanted to and these were your goals and you just ignored them, then you're going to be living with so much regret. And I don't want anybody to live like that. I want people to be able to learn from my mistakes so that they don't have to repeat them themselves. And that's pretty much what this channel is about. I want to share as much valuable information that I can from my life experiences. And when it comes to self-improvement, I want to share the journey that I'm on, the things that I do, and maybe a few men can learn from that. And if this type of content is something you like, if you took anything out of this video, please like and subscribe. Send this to a friend. And as always, God bless.